Square. You can ask me anything that you like about politics, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So you can ask all your questions here, and no one's going to roast you, no one's going to judge you, no one's going to try to debate you or own you or call you stupid or uninformed. What's up, D. Scott? Great to see you again. So yeah, things are particularly weird these days with politics, where there's all this misinformation and propaganda and weird teamsmanship that is happening. So this show is part of a, you know, an attempt to change that culture so that we can actually talk about what's going on without just reverting to fighting and yelling and screaming and trying to own each other. There's no harassment here or bullying. There's no fighting or debates. It is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. What's up, JP? Great to see you again. Hey, Triska, great to see you again as well. So, yeah, any questions about politics, just throw them in the chat and we will get to answering them. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, something on the outskirts. This is not you're not going to get called a fascist here. You're not going to get called a libtard here. There's no fighting. It is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. Maybe there's a question you've always wanted to ask, but you were worried that people would think that you were some sort of a MAGA person. Well, you can ask your MAGA question here. Maybe there's a question you've always wanted to ask, but you're worried that people would think that you're more liberal or left wing than you actually are. And where you live, people don't take too kindly to that. Well, you can ask that question here, and no one's going to judge you or roast you. Fletch, great to see you again, says, how do you fight the doom feeling? How do I fight the doom feeling? I take time to do my own thing. Right now, I am playing a video game called For the King. It cost me $5, and it is giving me hours of entertainment. Very, very cool. I like to go to the movies with the missus. The missus is expecting, so obviously we have a lot of work to do getting ready for our baby. And yeah, it's worth it to give your heart a break every once in a while and step away from the news and just remember that there are other layers of your existence. You get to zoom in and be part of the world where you love people and have a good time and enjoy art and celebrate life. And then once you're refreshed, then you get back into the fight. What's up, Zay Miruka? What's up with Trump and Iran? Currencies are crashing, I think you probably meant. Um, so yeah, there's a weird mix of motivations with Trump and Iran. I think that because he is being dog walked by Netanyahu into escalating conflicts in that region, he's looking for any excuse to do more military action against Iran. I mean, also, he wants to do more military action. He feels like he gets really good press when that happens. I think that him and Stephen Miller think that they'll get more power to subjugate dissenters here in America if we are at war with other nations. Triska and Muzzking, thank you so much for helping me reach my first gift goal of the day. So yeah, even though I don't think he really gives a shit about the plight of the protesters, both here and abroad, he is using this as an excuse to potentially escalate military tensions with Iran. It might end up that we get something good out of this with, the protests happening could potentially bring down the theocratic dictatorship that they have over there. It could potentially restart negotiations for the nuclear arms treaty, which Trump threw in the garbage just because Obama did it, which is so fucking stupid. So yeah, fingers crossed that, this sometimes the shittiest person does something good by accident. So maybe we will get lucky and potentially get into, maybe we'll roll a 7 this time around. More break, please. Great to see you again. I'm gonna check out that comment in just a second. I've been ignoring TikTok for a hot second. Steve-O says, is America great? Yeah, getting worse and worse every day that Trump is in office, but hopefully if people like you and me do the work, Steve-O, we can stop that downward trajectory into authoritarianism. Lindsay and Triska, thank you so much for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. Ouroboros for office says, do protests do anything? 100%. They are one tool, though. and we need to do lots of other things in addition to protesting. But 100% protests are effective. NRC says, do you think Trump outsurvives his term? I have no idea. Pieces of shit tend to live forever. You ever notice about that? M1A says, how do you feel about ICE? ICE is a corrupt, illegal, rogue agency that is operating without oversight. They are doing crimes. They are violating people's civil liberties. They are potentially doing murder. Like, we watched at least one murder happen. So, yeah, I do not have enough negative things to say about ICE. Jonah says, is Trump a good person? No, opposite. Steve-O says, maybe midterms will change things, although I do not believe voting is for real. Voting is 100% for real, Steve-O. If it wasn't real, then the Republican Party would not be working so hard to keep you from doing it. Right, scrolling up. Matthew says, are we going into an 07 recession? I'm a little less worried about the recession and more worried about hyperinflation if Trump gets what he wants with removing Jerome Powell at the Fed. GV says, what would happen if nobody casted a vote for any political politician? The politicians themselves would vote for themselves, and then they would get to continue being in power. So 100%, it is worth it to actually get out there and do the work and do the voting. Mark says you skipped my question, so he's leaving. Okay, well, I didn't see your question, so, I guess we'll miss you. Okay, Daniel D says, what's the difference between ICE and 1940s German political party? Not seeing a lot of differences, Daniel. All right, Airstyle, good to see you again. I think you're a person that has been here before. All right, let's get some more break, please. I quit drinking 3 years ago. I'm about to start drinking. I need a tattoo, several shots, and something that is not media-based because I'm about to lose my ever-loving fucking mind because of the corruption. Seeing what's happening in the United States right now has really, really infuriated me. Finally got over the flu, though I guess that's a plus, but now I'm protesting every day. So more break, please. I don't think it's a good idea for you to start drinking again if you have a problem with alcohol. I think there are better, smarter ways to deal with this frustration. Are you doing other activism besides protesting? Because I think protesting is great, but if you're not getting everything that you need out of that emotionally, then there are other things you could be doing with your time as well. I tell people, if you're ever worried about your mental state, do these 3 things. Go outside, talk to people, move your body. And protests are a great way of doing all those things, but there are other ways of accomplishing those goals as well. And I'm with you, man. Like, I am exactly as infuriated and frustrated as you are. I am agaw and aghast 24/7. And yeah, it can be really burdensome to be paying attention to all this shit and, not know what we can do to stop it or even if all the work that we're doing is working. But the work is working. The reason why Trump is escalating right now is because of how well the work is working. So we just got to keep the work up. We got to keep the pressure up, and we can turn this ship around. Wooly Bully says, release the files. Completely agree. Why isn't the Trump administration doing that? J-Dog says, and letting weapons rust away. I don't know what that means. Let's see here. Do you think our tax money is worth giving to Army for a war that's not going to happen? I don't know what you mean by a war that's not going to happen, J-Dog. Finn Diesel says, we are winning as a country. I don't think so. Bro Thought is calling me Joaquin Phoenix. That is very nice. That is very sweet. I don't agree, but it's very sweet. Not funny at all. Says, is the UN any use at all? It is, but it is exactly as powerful as the most powerful nations allow it to be. So America, China, Russia, the European Union, Canada, like, if we don't imbue the UN with authority and power, then it has none. And the fact that you've got rogue nations like Russia and America basically throwing their elbows for the past couple of decades, being like, well, you can tell us to do whatever you want, but we're going to do whatever we want. Yeah, it hasn't helped, unfortunately. M1 says, do you think Kamala should have won? 100%. She was the better candidate. We would not be in all of this bullshit that we are experiencing today if Kamala had won. Zay Miruka says, Trump is moving fast. First kidnapping, now this. Is World War III coming soon? I don't think we're going to get to World War III. It is true that Trump and his policies are escalating global tensions, but I don't think it's going to reach that crucial stage of being a world war. Aristotle says, they are not protests, sir. It's a full-blown revolt. Citizens are getting killed by the regime. Additionally, Iranians are asking for U.S. help. I mean, I guess we're just having a semantic argument about what's a protest and what's a full-blown revolt. I don't really see people not going to their jobs. You know, I feel like that would be part of it. Right. Zaymirka says ICE are getting aggressive. They sure darn are. They've murdered at least one person. Kingston says, "Hey, I wanted to quickly pop in. I have a class in 32 minutes. I could just watch your stream while in class? Well, you should focus on getting your degree, Kingston. You know, don't let me distract you." Cushman, that's an example of the kind of combo that gets you blocked, so you're out of here. Raw Backshots with the thumb in. One of my favorite names to say. Great to see you again. If you want to get ex-governor elected in Florida, what would you recommend would be the best way to help? Like, what is the best way to get them votes, in your opinion, or in general? Excellent question, Raw Backshots with the thumb in. I cannot tell you how much enjoyment I get when people with ridiculous names like yours have actually substantive things to say. So here's what I would say. First thing I would tell you to do is go check out an organization called Swing Left, because they have an initiative right now called Ground Truth, which is door knocking and talking to voters, but it's not you knock on the door, you ask them who you're voting for, and then you leave. You actually have long conversations with people and you check back with them. It is, in my opinion, the perfect way of building grassroots political power. If you don't want to do that, you can donate your time or your money to other great organizations like Indivisible and Run for Something and Vote Save America. I think number one would be talking to the people that you know already, your friends, your family, your neighbors, your coworkers. The people that already know you are going to be easier to convince to potentially sway their vote. So long as you're not trying to convince a MAGA person to be an AOC person, you probably have a lot more, success taking a soft Republican voter and turning them into a soft Democratic voter if you know them already. So yeah, let me know, Raw Backshots with a thumb in, if any of that information helped you out. Feel free to hit me up on my Discord or email me through my website, or shoot me a DM if there's any more information that you need. I'm happy to be a resource for you. Raw Backshots with the thumb in. Your name is so fucking funny compared with the substantive comments that you made that I actually told my wife about it. And I was like, I gotta remember what this dude's name. So I ended up watching my own stream back, just looking for your name, so I could be like, this dude, this motherfucker, Raw Backshots with the thumb in, is asking me about the Electoral College and shit like that. Dark Saturn says, thoughts on ICE. They are a rogue and barbaric organization. They are doing crimes. They are ignoring people's civil liberties. They are operating without any oversight. They have murdered at least one person that we know about. So, yeah, I cannot say enough negative things about ICE. There aren't enough negative words in the dictionary for me to accurately describe how I feel about ICE. Excuse me. Ronald Schaefer says, you have no problem with corporate Democratic leadership who are controlled by the same oligarchy. No, I do. I'm a progressive Democrat. I want to replace Schumer and Jeffries and any Democrats that isn't for Medicare for all and taxing the rich, Ronald Schaefer. But there's a difference between, perfect and good. And the Democratic Party is good. It is way better than the Republican Party. So until we get rid of every Republican who is cutting taxes for the wealthy and enabling ICE and enabling the corruption of the Trump administration and doing nothing as we violate international law and our Constitution and people's civil liberties, then hell yeah, I'm going to be fucking promoting the Democratic Party. Chipmunk Whisperer says, false. What did I say that you think is inaccurate, Chipmunk Whisperer? DT, the OG, says, why do Democrats raise taxes on the rich? I think you mean, why don't Democrats raise taxes on the rich when they are in power? Because if you're asking why they raise taxes on the rich, it's because it's the right thing to do. And the answer is that they do raise taxes on the rich when they're in power, but they have never been able to raise taxes on the rich as much as the previous Republican administration had cut taxes for the rich. DT, they 100% have. If you look up the Clinton administration, the Biden administration, the Obama administration, they have all raised taxes on the rich. But again, it's not as much as the previous Republican administration had cut taxes for the rich. And the reason for that is there's a lot of reasons for that. Some people in the Democratic Party get pressured into voting against those tax cuts because It would piss off their billionaire donors. Remember, some Democrats need corporate money in order to win elections, so sometimes they get influenced. It is a lot harder to coalesce the Democratic Party around an agenda because the Democratic Party is a big tent made up of a bunch of little groups. And so it's a lot easier for billionaires to sort of like siphon off the one or two votes that they need in order to stop their taxes from being raised as much as they were previously just cut. I will refer you to Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema being the fucking, fly in the ointment during the Biden administration, keeping all of that great progressive work from getting done. Alrighty. Right. Oh, we had a bunch of comments on Twitch and shit like that. Okay. Zay Murica says, Mamdani is trying to make housing affordable, but will he give free healthcare? I don't know where that is on his agenda, Zay Murica, but I guarantee you it is something that he would like to do if it is economically feasible. More break, please, as I have been working with Indivisible a lot over the past couple of months and even more in the past 2 weeks. I appreciate your words, and I didn't stop to think that our work was working, and that's why he's turning up the volume. Oh, 100%. Look at every special election that happened in 2025. We are talking about historic Democratic gains. Like, elections were one that we shouldn't have won, and elections were competitive that we very much should not have been competitive. So yeah, the work is working, but because Trump is threatened, because he feels power slipping away from him, because he feels accountability around the corner, that's why because he knows that the e-files are potentially coming out at some point. That's why he's starting a war with Venezuela and Iran and trying to annex Greenland and trying to incite protesters to do violence so that he can justify declaring martial law and all sorts of shit just like that. D. Scott, East Meets Westy, Triska, thank you so much for helping me reach my third gift goal of the day. And you know what that means, everybody. That means it is finger hearts o'clock. All right, Evan Andres says, you're coping, LOL. Well, you spelled your wrong, so you are out of here. Scrolling down to the bottom, Flamingo Mo says, why do non-New Yorkers care so much about the mayor in NYC? Donald Trump seems to like him. So the reason why people outside of New York like Mamdani is because we are always looking for politicians that reflect our moralities and our beliefs and our ethics. We are looking for the politicians to model for the future of wherever we are living. Additionally, some people might potentially be thinking about, maybe Mamdani wants to run for some other kind of office in the future, maybe senator, maybe governor, maybe president at some point. And so us being excited about him is communicating to the party and to other politicians, like, this is the shit that we like, And so if you're in Iowa or Minnesota or California or wherever, and everybody's hype about Mamdani, then maybe we get a fucking Idaho Mamdani. Maybe we get a fucking Florida and Texas Mamdani. Alrighty, scrolling down to the bottom here. Airstyle says Medicare should be dismantled. You can't have healthcare run entirely by for-profit organizations. Maybe just copy Europe thoughts. I completely agree with you, Airstyle, but here's the thing that I think a lot of progressives forget, which is that even if there was no political pressure to not do Medicare for all, it's going to be hard to switch over the system. The insurance companies are firmly entrenched in people's doctors' offices and dentist offices, etc. The systems the roots are deep, and people's livelihoods are going to have to be engineered. Somebody who works for an insurance company is going to have to be able to transition into doing that kind of job for government-run healthcare instead. And so while 100% we should do it, we should switch over to Medicare for all, it's going to be hard, and there's going to be mistakes that are made, and money is going to be spent, and potentially money is going to be wasted doing it. And then that is going to cause the people who are incentivized to fight against Medicare for all, like insurance companies, they're going to overhype those mistakes to make it seem like switching over was a mistake to begin with. And so, do I think that we shouldn't have Medicare or Medicaid until we have universal health care? I don't agree with that. I think we need to have as many stepping stones as possible before we make that big leap, so that the big leap is easier and has fewer disruptions. But yeah, I think that there's this idea that because Medicare for all is such an obviously better system, that we would get better healthcare outcomes and it would be cheaper in the long run for everybody. We forget about how difficult a bureaucratic process switching over will be. And I really want people to start internalizing that information so that when we are eventually at that point where we can make that switch, it's not a fucking gobsmack. It's not going to be a political football that the right can use and that the billionaires can use to take Medicare for all down, because we've all understood that this is part of the price, that this is what we were expecting the process to be like. Slick says Democrats tax more so we can steal more. Inaccurate, Slick. You're out of here. All right. Jose Me says, exists a perfect ideology? Probably not. But, we can always strive towards perfection. We can be moving in that direction, even if we never achieve it. Zay Mirka says, bruh, I'm in Malaysia, but I love Mamdani. He do the difference. Yeah. And what's up, Malaysia? I hope that things are going good over in Malaysia. Zof says, what's your definition of perfection? I guess nobody is struggling for food, healthcare, housing, universal healthcare, perfect green energy systems. We're not burning any, fossil fuels, climate change reversed, whole organic foods instead of ultra processed foods, public transportation, self-driving cars, yeah, people aren't stuck in poverty. There's no billionaires, shit like that. Okay, Unique Mining Sag says, what do you think about the mess? I don't know what that is. Let's see here. Zof1 says, so essentially what, left wing? Yeah, I'm a left wing person. DT the OG says, if the rich pay more in taxes but my taxes don't get lowered, how does that help me? Excellent question, DT the OG. So, in a hypothetical world in which taxes go up for billionaires but don't go down for you, that would still benefit you, because government programs that would be funded by the billionaire class would have knock-on effects or immediate effects that help you. For example, the Trump administration is dismantling things like the FDA, which is making sure that your food and your medicines are safe to consume. And so if billionaires paid their fair share, we could fund that agency to make sure that you're not getting fucking lead poisoning from your chocolate bars and shit like that. If the billionaires were being taxed and we're using that money to create socialized housing, then you wouldn't have to worry about, crazy unhoused people, begging you for change and, making you feel uncomfortable on the sidewalks or making you feel unsafe. Like maybe they have some sort of mental disorder, from just the exposure of having to live on the street for so long. In the same vein, we could use that money to fund mental health care programs so that we wouldn't have people living on the street just because they are suffering from mental health crises and shit like that. Funding public parks, public transportation, better public schools, stuff like that. That will have a financial benefit to you. Because if we even just think about like housing, for example, like if we use billionaire money to build more houses, cheaper housing, that means that there's fewer people competing with you for whatever houses used to be in your price range. So now potentially all housing prices are coming down, so you can afford a better place to live, maybe. Alrighty. Let's see here. Unique Mining Sag says, are you interested in European politics? I know almost nothing about it. I don't really have the bandwidth. Isaac Anthony says, why is the Democratic Party so bad at getting the youth and non-college graduate votes? So Isaac Anthony, I don't know if the Democratic Party is bad at getting the youth and non-college graduate votes, but I think that the billionaire class has invested a lot of money into propagandizing those specific groups of people. And it's, they do it in very insidious ways. Like they have hired bot and troll farms to, hang out in Call of Duty lobbies and convince people to listen to people like Tim Pool and Tucker Carlson and shit like that. So yeah, the Democratic Party could be better at messaging, obviously, and I think that directing their focus to uh, communities of people, of young people, and non-college graduates is a very smart move. But let's be clear about this: where messaging and the electoral systems are both concerned, the Republican Party has massive structural advantages that have absolutely nothing to do with their ability to do messaging or their awesome platform or governing history. It's things like the Electoral College. It's things like campaign finance laws not being enforced. It's things like having 75% of all billionaire political donations. Like they have this unbelievable network of both funders for their party and messaging avenues for their propaganda, you know? So, yeah, 100%. The Democrats could be better at messaging. But let's be clear, like, you know, there was I don't know if you guys ever read this is a stupid story. I'm not going to tell it. Let's just say that the Democratic Party is playing basketball against the Republican Party, and the basket for the Democratic Party is like down here. So the Republican Party only has to like run downhill, and it's a lot easier. And when the Democratic Party tries to make their goal, they're running uphill because of things like loose campaign finance laws, electoral college, right wing propaganda media, et cetera, et cetera. Veed, what's up with you? JSL says, is the discussion of the bipartisan system actually obtainable, or are we stuck this way? So 100% there are valid criticisms that you can make of the two-party system. If you want to open it up to other parties, we would need ranked choice voting. Otherwise, independent parties would just serve to be spoiler candidates for one of the main two parties. And if we want to get ranked choice voting, we have to vote for Democrats because Democrats are open to it. Republicans are trying to make it illegal. I can even tell you the name of the House bill if you want. So yeah, the best way is through. Support better over worse. Advocate for ranked choice voting, and then suddenly we will see other political parties being able to have a foothold in our system. Zay Miruka says Trump stopping Jews from buying all houses is a good start. What a weird thing to say, Zay Miruka. Can we not do anti-Semitism on my chat, Zay Miruka? Like, you're a regular. You should know better, man. You know my last name is Berenstein, right? Like, good lord, man. Can we not? All right. Tim says, I have the same shirt. Awesome. I hope I see you out in it sometime. We'll be twins. Isaac Anthony says, do you agree we need a Charlie Kirk for the Democratic Party to inspire the youth in order to win? I mean, I guess it would depend on what your definition of a quote-unquote Charlie Kirk is. And before I get into this, I will just say off the bat, I do not condone any kind of political violence, extrajudicial murders, political assassinations, anything like that. I don't think Charlie Kirk was a good person, but that does not mean that, it was right that he was assassinated. So let's get that out of the way. What Charlie Kirk did was lie to people. He lied to impressionable children, and he used billionaire money to spread that information far and wide. I don't think that we should have a Democratic version of that. Somebody who goes to college campuses and lies to people to quote unquote win debates, and then, what's the word I'm looking for? Edits the footage in a way that makes it seem like they're a genius and everybody else is stupid, and that left wing people are stupid. I just don't think that that's the move. But yeah, I do think that cool people should be trying to get young people interested and informed about politics so that, we can have a better educated generation coming up through the ranks. Jay King says, but you do that on TikTok. I don't lie. Jay King, can you tell me a single thing that I've said that you think is inaccurate? Isaac Anthony says, by Charlie Kirk, I mean someone who's willing to meet people where they are at, but for our side. 100% Isaac Anthony. And I think that people are actually doing that. And I actually kind of object to the idea that Charlie Kirk did meet people where they were. Yeah, he was just beating people over the head with bullshit talking points and made up statistics. So yeah, but people are 100% doing that. That's what I'm trying to do here. I don't know if young people like me. I looked up my live stats. And I think that my number one demographic is people above the age of 50, men above the age of 50. But I'm pretty fucking cool. I hope that young people can see how fucking cool I am. But one of the best ways to convince kids that you're cool is by demanding that they recognize how cool you are. Veed says, do you see any of the liners from Trump a little bit ago at the Detroit Economic Forum? See any of the liners from Trump? I don't know what that means, Veed. Let's see here. Isaac Anthony says, nobody is as popular doing it as Charlie Kirk for us for some reason, and I hope we get someone. I completely agree with that, Isaac Anthony, but let's take a look at that for a hot second, all right? Ms. Weaver, Triska, East Meets Westy, thank you so much for helping me reach my first Finger Hearts goal of the day. Finger Hearts goal number 2 coming right up. So, a lot of these right-wing talking heads are artificially inflated by the right-wing propaganda machine. You know, we still don't know how certain people were able to get the reach that they have. We don't know where their funding came from. We don't know how Nick Fuentes was able to survive with like 100 views on each of his videos for so long until he, you know, became so much more popular. Yeah, people like Candace Owens, and Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro, like they have been destroying on social media for an unbelievable amount of time. And I think that part of that is because the social media algorithm prefers people that say shit that's infuriating and wrong, and because it encourages more engagement with that shit. But I also think that the billionaires who are in charge of the social media platforms, they view it as a positive when we are fighting and yelling amongst ourselves instead of actually going after them and their ill-gotten gains. So any progressive content creator is going to have an uphill climb. It's not going to be handed to them on a silver platter the way that it was with Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes and Tim Pool. You know, Tim Pool was taking fucking Russian oligarch money to spread his bullshits far and wide. You know, like the game is rigged against us. The best thing that we can do is fucking do it and hope that, you know, one of us catches fire. But, you know, Destiny, Vosh, what's the fucking dude's name? The sexy dude, the thirst trap dude. Hassan Piker, you know, Dean, and that other dude. I think his name is Parker or something. Like, they're pretty popular, you know? And they had a whole thing where they were doing a tour where they were going to college campuses. So, like, we're doing the work. Maybe we're not as, you know, as visible as people like Charlie Kirk were, but we're out there doing the work, you know? I would love to be that popular, you know, just because I think that this information is really important for lots and lots of people to see. Kingston says, I do have a question. If we banned sniper weapons and others, would that help lower the assassinations, etc.? Had we banned them back in the days of Dr. King, would he still be alive? That's a really good question, Kingston, and I'm not 100% sure on that. My gut is telling me that you can't ban those kinds of weapons because those are the exact kind of weapons that hunters use. And hunting is like one of the only sort of like viable use cases for gun ownership that we have here in America, where good progressives or good responsible conservative gun owners are like, yeah, 100% we should ban AR-15s and shit like that, but obviously I need my rifle to go hunting for deer and elk and the like. So yeah, that's my general take on that. All right, Kate the Grateful says, but they continue to participate in debates, and I don't think MAGA should be platformed. Yeah, 100. I agree with you, Kate the Grateful. I don't think that format is as productive as, for example, my format, which I don't, where I'm like, no fighting, no name calling, no trying to own anybody. But at the same time, I do think it increases the visibility of progressive policies for the youth generation. So, you know, is it a net positive? Is it a net negative? I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit of a net positive. I kind of think that anything that gets kids excited about politics is a net positive. But I'm also trying to be part of a new wave of political discussion where people don't get into fights with people. Okay, Pastor Daryl the Sauce Getter says, what countries have bicameral legislative bodies? I don't know, Pastor, so sorry about that. Isaac Anthony says, do you think Gavin Newsom beats J.D. Vance in a presidential election? 100%. Yeah, I don't necessarily want Newsom to be the nominee. He's, you know, I think I have other preferences depending on who enters the primaries, but we're talking about a tall, charming, charismatic, straight white man against one of the least charismatic individuals on the planet Earth, J.D. Vance. Natcat says the Dems seem to be bought and paid for by billionaires. How do we return to actual populism? Natcats. Do you mind if I answer your question with a question? Are you still here, Natcats? Let me know. Give me a yay or something to let me know. Yes, Natcat is still here. Okay. Do you think that the Democratic Party does as much work to help the billionaire class as the Republican Party does? Let me know what you think about that question. Grace says Democrats are trying to get 2 seats in the House. Democrats are trying to get more than that. Grace, midterm elections are coming up. I think it's possible that we get a massive win, depending on how much work people do and how successful the Trump and Republican voter suppression machine ends up being. Okay, Steven says, why are the majority of people right-wing when it's against their own interests? I don't think the majority of people are right-wing, Steven. I think the majority of people are probably unregistered or independent. I think we were going by party registration. I think there are way more registered Democrats in America than registered Republicans. But yeah, a lot of things give Republicans unfair advantages, which makes it seem like they're more popular than they are. Natcat says, I do believe that they are. It's indicative of their insider trading undermining progressive policy. I think it's interesting that you would think that, Natcat, because if you look at every administration since Reagan, the Republican Party has cut taxes for the wealthy, and the Democratic Party has raised taxes on the wealthy. So I guess I don't understand where you think they are equally doing the work of the billionaire class if one party is massively cutting their taxes and one party is raising their taxes. Additionally, the Republican Party cuts regulations that protect us from things like, poison water and poison air and poison food. They do this so that billionaires can make more money. Whereas Democrats actually empower agencies like the EPA and the FDA and stand by those regulations and support those regulations so that our air and water and food can be safe to ingest. What do you think about that, Natcat? Before I let you on, I want you to respond to that before I let you on. All right, JP says, one trip to Wisconsin can give you a lifetime's proof of the legitimacy of deer hunting. Deer are a menace. Yeah, but they're an adorable menace. Lieutenant says, what's Crooked and Bubba afraid of? Excellent question. Jim says, what are your thoughts on rank file voting? Is that the same as ranked choice voting? Because I'm for it. Grace says, will you let all your friends and family know that your elected seats are up for grabs? I don't know what you mean by that. Echo, I completely agree with that. Let's get that shit happening. Hank Bowery says, in your opinion, how and why can opinions be so polarized in something like video evidence? I think that the right-wing billionaires have been extremely effective at sort of like identificationifying politics and feeding into the culture war. So, there's a thing that happens whenever like a mass shooting event happens where people wait to see, is this a right-wing person? Is this a left-wing person? Is this a white person or is this a brown person? Because if it's a brown person or a left-wing person, then all the Republicans go, look at this, the left is so violent. And if it's a right-wing person, then the left goes, all right, we need gun control. And the right goes, no, this is a sick person. They weren't associated with us, blah, blah, blah. People on the right have been fooled into thinking that their identity is dependent on being a Republican. And so when they see a video of an ICE agent murdering somebody, they immediately go, okay, well, my team can't be evil, so how do I justify this being an okay thing to do? Maybe the lady in that car was a terrorist. Maybe she was trying to run him over with her car. Some comedian, I can't remember who it was, maybe it was Stavros, I can't remember. He had this bit about, he likes watching people find the justification for what their political party does. Like the party that was like, no new wars is suddenly like, fuck Greenland. Yeah, it's I think deeply rooted in the culture of right-wing politics. Alrighty. Natcat says, hard to respond in short ticks. I just hate the pandering to the middle when the middle shifts right. I still like the Dems, but globally speaking, they center right compared to global democracy. All right, I think it's a totally fair thing to say, Natcat, but I guess my response to that would be you can have legitimate criticisms of the Democratic Party or specific people in the Democratic Party while also acknowledging that the Democratic Party is better at standing up to the billionaires, taxing the billionaires. And the Republican Party does more work to advance the agenda of the billionaires, and that their platform is basically just a giveaway to the billionaire class. Do you agree with me on that? Can you meet me there? Can you meet me in that place where it's like, let's actually discuss the very real. Yes, I don't disagree, but Biden didn't undo 2017. Excellent point, Natcat, 100%. So I just want to make sure that we are in agreement that the Republican Party is worse on this issue than the Democratic Party, and we can talk about why Biden didn't undo this in 2017. BS Truckin says, your ignorance is in the party ideology views. What do you think I said, BS, that was inaccurate? I think it's interesting that your name is BS. Jared says, we have to come to a time where being a rational person is considered far right. We have come to a time where being a rational person is considered far right. I don't know if I agree with that, Jared. Sue's not sorry. Thank you for that. Schrodinger says they both work in favor of the billionaires. I disagree with that, Schrodinger, because the Democratic Party raises taxes on the billionaires and the Republican Party lowers taxes on the billionaires. The Democratic Party regulates their businesses so that people don't get poisoned with the chemical runoff from their chemical factories. And the Republican Party cuts regulations so that billionaires can make more money by using pipes that are going to explode and kill a bunch of teens. All right, let's see here. All right. Sorry I couldn't get to that last question of yours, Kingston. You have a great day. Boring says, why would a leftist like you see any problems with the Democratic Party? Because the Democratic Party is not perfect. There are definitely problems. The issue that I have is equating the sins of the Democratic Party to the sins of the Republican Party. Like, say whatever you want about the Biden administration or the Obama administration, but they haven't done shit that is half as bad as Trump having a cryptocurrency or enabling ICE to murder citizens on the street and do fucking door-to-door stops, building concentration camps, shipping people to fucking concentration camps in El Salvador. Like, there's nothing even fucking close on the Democratic side to that shit. Whatever dude says that's a lie. What's a lie? Droot says they're all the same party. Inaccurate. There are wildly different outcomes depending on who's in charge. Whatever dude says more or less. I don't know what that means. Schrodinger says Democratic Party plays a crucial role upholding the system that keeps billionaires in power. Completely disagree, Schrodinger. The Democratic Party is trying to make it so that billionaires aren't able to buy elections, and the Republican Party is doing the opposite. You have to ask a question going forward, Schrodinger, or I'm going to boot you. Droot says they want you to think they are different. They are different. Droot, same rule for you. You have to ask a question or I'm going to boot you. Natcat says, though they haven't done shit, they have never responded aggressively beyond strongly worded response. Natcat, what are you talking about? Robert Trainer says Obama built cages for them. Yeah, I don't really give a shit because he used them differently. I don't really care who made the gun. I care about the person who used the gun to kill somebody. Rico says, not really American politics, but what do you think Obama look like in 5 months? I have no idea. Thumbirth says, advice on dealing with deliberate agitators in protests. This is a really good question, and I don't have a great answer for you right away. I think sunlight is the best disinfectant in that situation. Film them, interrogate them. The way, there was that dude that was burning the American flag and then he just like dipped and he had his face covered and everything. And people followed him with their cameras. Like, why would you burn an American flag and then run away? Why would you try to incite everybody to go fucking crazy and create chaos and then run away? Seems kind of sketchy, guy. Seems kind of sketchy. So yeah, that's the best idea I have, but maybe like professional people that go to a lot of protests can maybe give you more information on that. Droot says, bring me up, I'll explain. That wasn't a question, Droot. That's your, Droot says, they are all owned by corporations, this one party. Do you not see that? All right, that's a question. I'll answer that. No, again, Droot, you cannot argue with the data. There are different outcomes when Democrats are in power versus Republicans are in power. The platforms are different. The politicians are different. What they accomplish, what they're trying to accomplish, what they stop from happening is different. So give me, if you want more information on this, I will give it to you. But you can't just sit here on my live stream saying, no, you're wrong, because I have the data. Like, ask me about it. Ask me for specifics. I'll give it to you. And no, I will not allow you to explain, Groot. Willie, what's up? Great to see you again. Whatever, dude says. Did you hear that $1 trillion tax base of California are talking leaving on Signal because of the 5% billionaires tax? I don't know what that means, whatever, dude. But yeah, I don't really care if billionaires leave. Like, good riddance. Greasy says, what's your take on Oklahoma legislation trying to make independent votes not count? I haven't read anything about that, Greasy, but it really does seem like some Republican shit right there. Oh, Gus's reaction says, you're okay with the DNC installing Kamala without a primary election. Gus's reactions, I guess I would ask you, what do you think was a better option? There couldn't be a primary because there wasn't enough time. Ohio was threatening to not put the name of the candidate on their ballot unless the Democratic Party told them who their nominee was before the convention. So we couldn't even have a convention primary. What do you think they should have done instead, Gus? Okay, Robert Trainer says interest rates dropping, record stock, secure border, tariffs, trade deficits about gone. Yeah, Robert Trainer, none of that is accurate. Gus's reaction says, sure, they could have. No, they couldn't have, Gus. Unless we wanted to leave our candidate's name off of the ballot in at least one key swing states, Gus's reaction. So, again, yeah, I'm putting the question rule on you too, Gus, because I don't like people that come into my live stream and then just tell me, no, you're wrong. Jonathan O says, what's your view on U.S. support for Israel? I'm against it. Israel has been found guilty of doing war crimes in G-side, and we already have a rule on the books that says that we are not allowed to send countries that do that any more money and weapons. Kareem says, Israel or Palestine, porque no los dos. I am for the citizens of both countries. I am against the governing bodies of both of those countries. Warzone Hunter says, both parties belong to the Israeli government. No, there are more Democrats that vote against sending money and weapons to Israel than there are Republicans that do that. In fact, I don't think there are any Republicans that do that. East meets Westy, D. Scott, Triska, Italiana, thank you so much for helping me reach my second Finger Hearts goal of the day. All right, Francis Underwood says, do you support Destiny? I think Destiny's a very smart person. He's great at debating. I don't know how productive debating is, and I very much disagree with him on a number of issues, most specifically Israel. But yeah, I prefer that there are smart people doing a lot of talking on progressive issues and calling out the sins of the Republican Party than not having people like that. Airstyle says, voter ID, yay or nay? So, short answer, I'm going to try to make this as short as possible. Voter ID is a voter suppression tactic that the Republican Party uses to try to get Democratic voters to not be able to vote. There is no voter fraud that would necessitate having voter ID, but if there are Republicans out there who want to compromise on this, let's just make getting an ID free and easy. Because one of the tactics that Republicans use to disenfranchise voters is closing down DMVs in Democratic areas, so people have to drive 4 fucking hours on their day off to go get an ID that they can't afford because they cost like $60 or $80 or whatever. Make them free and easy to get, and then I will vote for voter ID. But as long as it can be used as a voter suppression tactic, I am against it. And also, there is no problem that it solves. Alrighty, let's see here. Taz Nemo says, should we get rid of AIPAC? I think we should get rid of all lobbying organizations, Taz Nemo. I think there's a weird hyper focus on AIPAC that I think is a little anti-Semitic coded. But why not? Why aren't we equally as mad at Heritage? Why aren't we equally as mad at the Federalist Society? Natcat says, I'm not interested in debating, but can I join? Would love a nuanced discussion. You know what, Natcat? You are exactly the kind of person that I allowed to have on the live stream. Give me a hot second to catch up with some of these comments, and I will let you on. Have you requested already? Okay, let's see here. Willie says, if we tax billionaires heavily, won't they just move operations overseas and we lose taxpayer funds? Excellent question, Willie. So there are mechanisms by which billionaires are not able to take all of their wealth out of the country. You know, there are loopholes that they have been exploiting for a long time in order to send their money to the Cayman Islands or Swiss bank accounts and shit like that. But if we are smart about how we tax the billionaires, they will not be able to just take their money and run. One of the things that we had been working on during the Biden administration, and I'm not part of the Democratic Party, but we, meaning progressives, is we were trying to work on a global corporate tax rate so that billionaires could not jump shit to other countries that would tax them less. The Trump administration canceled that initiative. So, ergo, another piece of evidence that the parties are different, that Republicans do more to carry water for the billionaire class, etc. Right. Francis Underwood says, I get your take on Destiny, but I can't get past his disgusting personality and he has a sketchy history. No arguments there, man. I don't know if we could have picked a worse messenger for progressive politics than a polycule, blue-haired liberal in an open relationship, you know? Anyways, all right, let's chat with Nat Cat, who has been very patient and respectful. This is if for anybody who really wants to be a part of the chat, do what Nat Cat did. This is exactly how you do it. What's up, Nat Cat? How you doing?
Hey, Jarrett. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. What can I do for you?
So, kind of based on what you're talking about, I feel like you and I are pretty similarly aligned.
Sounds right.
Just to kind of give you a little bit of background on me, I have a degree in poli-sci, worked as an operative for the Democratic Party for a couple of years in their field organizing work, and then ended up going into private industry, working now in government contracting.
Okay.
So, trust me, it's tough being a communist working in the military-industrial complex. But that's a joke, because really at the end of the day, when it comes to like my personal politic, I'm definitely more aligned with like the Elizabeth Warrens of the world, the Zohran Mamdanis, the social dems.
Same.
So to kind of rewind to the topic that I brought up in my first question about the Democratic Party as a whole and feeling like they've essentially lost the spirit of this blue collar working party, the party that came from the mountains, the party that came from the unionists and everything in between.
Mm-hmm.
I don't disagree with you in the sense that the Democrats, compared to the Republican Party, are a lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
But I do believe that they are compromised.
Okay. Do you mind if I comment on that real quick?
Yeah,
I'll try to keep this short so it can be a conversation, not a monologue. But I don't agree with calling the Democratic Party the lesser of two evils, because I think that if you look at what was achieved by the Democratic Party during the Obama administration and the Biden administration, I think it would be fair to call that good. Not perfect, obviously. I have some massive issues with Israel specifically, but other things as well. But I think it's a little hyperbolic to call the Democratic Party the lesser of two evils. Now, are there people in the Democratic Party who are compromised? 100%. Is campaign finance a
Yes.
method by which billionaires are able to water down progressive legislation? All they need to do is pick off one or two Democrats like Manchin or Sinema, and they can tank basically any legislation. 100%. But I think the platform and the party in general is better than people give it credit for.
I don't necessarily disagree, but where I struggle with is if you the Democratic Party, in my opinion, has been operating on their heels since Bush won in 2000, right? Like, I feel like that was the last time the party as a whole genuinely got behind and rallied behind progressive policy, economic policy, and an environmental policy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything that came from, and forgive me, I cannot think of his name, the Inconvenient Truth Man.
Oh, Al Gore. Yeah.
Al Gore, right? Like, I love Al Gore. I think that that was a massive watershed moment that could have really been a completely different outcome that we're seeing today.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't. Where I struggle is, so under the Democrats, Citizens United got turned over while we had Democrats in president's office. And then Roe v. Wade also got turned over when a Democrat was in office.
Okay,
and I understand that the circumstances were built by the Republicans.
So then what's the value? What's the value of it happening under a Democratic president? Why is that an indictment if the Republican Party did it, but it happened time-wise, chronologically, under a Democratic president?
I think the indictment is that the Democrats as a whole have been operating from a position of weakness. and not approaching things aggressively, not playing the rule, like playing by the rules versus responding in kind to the actions that the Republicans have been doing to us in dismantling our democracy. In a sense, they've almost been idly waiting by. For example,
Yes.
Cory Booker did his 25-hour speech. It was record-breaking. It was inspirational. 2 weeks later, he voted to confirm another Trump administration.
100%. Yeah, that's very frustrating. I'm with you on that 100%.
And then it's the Chuck Schumer stuff. You talk about Israel. I mean, and I'm Jewish too.
Yeah.
I just feel like there has been a departure from the working class from both parties. And because the system has been made so that billionaires are purchasing and buying airtime, buying ad time, advocating for the candidates that they want, we're not getting progressive representation in the way that's needed and in a way that actually represents what the electorate wants. Because I think genuinely Donald Trump got elected because people are hurting from a system that has been run by both Democrats and Republicans.
Okay, so do you mind if I respond to that real quick? Okay.
No, go for it.
I think that's because we don't disagree on what the better policy and better politicians would look like.
No.
The issue that I have is I think with a kind of like a cultural zeitgeist of how we view the two political parties. And a lot of what I see as the sins of the Democratic Party can be explained by the disadvantages of being a Democratic politician. For example, you want to talk about Al Gore, how great Al Gore was. Do you remember the Al Gore invented the internet thing that happened during the 2000 election?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I didn't know anything about politics back then, but I heard it was a joke, you know, and it was on every late night show, and Letterman would use it in their roasts, and Leno would use them in the roasts, and it became like this cultural thing that happened, right? Where the fuck did that come from? Al Gore really did secure the funding that invented the internet. He never said he invented the internet. All he was saying was this great, incredible thing that gave us a budget surplus. You can thank me for that. I deserve credit for that. Maybe this is an example of my good judgment and governance. And somehow that got turned into Al Gore fucking said that he invented the internet. What a fucking asshole. Let's roast him to death. Sure. Now, I see so many examples of shit like that happening throughout, and that's just messaging. We're not even talking about campaign finance. We're not even talking about the Electoral College and gerrymandering and shit like that. I think a lot of the sins of the Democratic Party, not all of them, but a lot of them, come from fighting in a system that has been rigged against them. Yeah. And so where you see America wants legislation like Elizabeth Warren would or Mamdani would, I see polling that says the majority of Americans think the Democratic Party has gone too far to the left. And now that whole study that I'm quoting there, I think there's some issues with that as well, because if you ask those people what makes them too far to the left, they list a bunch of things that the Democratic Party has never tried to legislate. And when they're asked, what would you like the Democratic Party to be doing instead, they list a bunch of things that the Democratic Party did try to legislate. They said, why won't the Democratic Party try to raise the minimum wage? And I was like, they fucking did try to raise the minimum wage. Fucking Kristen Sinema voted against it. And otherwise, we would have had the fucking raise the minimum wage. There are so many examples of this happening where Democrats say one thing, it gets chewed up and spit out and turned into something negative. Democrats try to do something good, it gets turned into something negative. Do you remember death camps during the Affordable Care Act fight?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know? And so they're being told by the American people, we want you to be more progressive and we want you to be less progressive. We want you to not fund the military-industrial complex, but we don't want you to be fucking pussies and let dictators push you around. They're being put in this impossible position where they're simultaneously too far to the left and too far to the right and doing too much and doing too little at the exact same time that the billionaires are hyper-funding the Republican Party and the Democrats are getting dragged through the mud for taking corporate money just to stay competitive. You know?
Well,
so it's like, I feel you so much on this.
feeding into this misinformation cycle that we've been stuck in. I feel like we're in the
100%.
second era of yellow journalism.
Wait, say that again?
Right, the billionaires are feeding into this cycle by, the way that PACs work, right? They don't have to give money to campaigns to still have significant influence on elections. They can just
100%.
buy an ad spot.
Yeah, 1,000%.
And then it's pervasive, right?
Mhm,
So
mhm.
I think about a lot of the issues that Trump supporters wanted, right? Trump ran on a very populist platform.
Yeah.
He's obviously not following through on it, but the things that he says, I mean, if you smartened it up a little bit, you could put it in a vacuum and compare it to Bernie Sanders.
Well, let me
Right?
push back on that just a
He's
little
speaking to
bit.
that pain
Let me push
that a
back
lot
on that
of
just a
people
little
have.
bit, Nat Cat, because yeah, he does say economic populist shit sometimes, but then he also says the opposite. That's the
Yeah,
key to
well,
him
he feeds
running.
into-
He would say whatever the person in front of him wanted to hear, you know?
And he feeds into that base emotion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When at the end of the day, it's so much easier to blame 13 trans athletes in college than it is to blame a billionaire who's been fighting against raising the minimum wage for the past 30 years.
100%. Now, I do.
Right? I'll let you go.
No, sorry. I do feel like we're kind of getting off the topic here. But I just wanted to sort of like reiterate my points about, yes, the Democratic Party is not perfect. There are many, substantive critiques you could make of them. But I think a lot of that is not only hyperbolic, but based on them trying to survive in a system that is rigged against them. And there's one more example I want to give you before I leave. All right?
Okay.
If I asked you who America viewed as the political party that cared more and did more about national security and stopping terrorism, which party would you say that is?
I mean, what I think and what I
No. What is
versus
the
what I would
the general American public? What do you think the general American public would tell you?
They'd say the Republicans.
They'd say the Republican Party, but they were the ones that let 9/11 happen, right?
Mhm.
So why is this happening? Why, when they're responsible for like the last 5 stock market crashes, are they viewed as the fiscally responsible party?
Because they own the media in a sense.
That's what I'm talking about. That's
And
exactly
they
what I'm
own the
talking about.
conversation.
And so when we're out here, and people are yelling at us about how, both parties are the same, or the billionaires own the Democratic Party too, I'm like, I mean, it doesn't seem like these cultural narratives are being created in good faith. It's completely inorganic and designed to kill the better political party that's actually going after the billionaire class, right?
Sure, but
Excellent.
the Democratic Party also kills and undermines progressivism in its tracks.
Not the entire Democratic Party. I have an issue with party leadership, and
Why did it take until the last 2 weeks of Mamdani's election to actually endorse him?
No arguments there. That was so fucking stupid. Completely agree with you there. And here's the thing. I think we should get rid of Schumer. I think we should get rid of Jeffries. Get somebody better in those positions. But I do like to put a little asterisk on that, which is to say that being the leader of a big tent party that is not a monolith the way that the Republican Party is much more of a monolith is a very difficult job. And so
I don't disagree there.
I think we could probably have somebody better in that position. But I think if you actually talked to the people who worked with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, they would probably say that they were really good at their job. I can't say whether or not that's accurate or not, but I think there's a lot that happens there. Like, everybody hated Nancy Pelosi, but everybody that worked with Nancy Pelosi was like, she is one of the most savvy legislators that has ever run the House majority.
We wouldn't have the ACA without her.
Exactly, 100%. 100%.
But I want to see more aggression from them. I want to see more pushback.
What do you think America's reaction would be to that, though?
I don't think we're in a vacuum anymore. I think it would be really complicated. I don't have an answer for that question.
See, that's where I'm talking about, man. Like, I think we haven't seen what the Democratic Party really wants to do. I think that the Democratic Party has been being pulled in every direction and has been suffering under disadvantages in campaign finance and electoral systems and messaging, etc. And so everything that they have done, they have been trying to make everybody happy because they've only ever had like a 1 seat or 0 seat majority to do anything with. And so while we completely agree on, what we want the Democratic Party to be. I think we also have to be cool with the Democratic Party being what it is, because not everybody in America agrees with you and me.
Sure, but what I will leave with.
Okay.
Right, I worked in the campaigns.
Yeah.
I did, persuasion campaign work. I walked the doors, made thousands of phone calls. There's always this pandering to the mythic independent or the mythical swing voter, where, in the same vein, they are losing progressives, like not left wing, not this crazy whatever boogeyman that is being built, but they are losing people like me, who was dedicated to the platform.
Yeah.
And then also where it's like seeing the hypocrisy where they're still voting to arm Israel.
But we have a record number of Democrats voting against that.
At the most recent vote.
Yeah.
A year ago, almost all of them still voted for it.
Yeah. But,
and so,
how, we were talking about the national security thing and the Republicans being fiscally responsible thing and Al Gore invented the internet thing. Like, I really think that a lot of this comes from where is our focus? Like, why aren't we looking at Biden successfully?
At how Mamdani succeeded?
I mean, Mamdani did succeed. I think that's a great example there. And why aren't we looking at the Democrats that supported him? Why are we only focused on the Christian Gillibrands who refused to endorse him? When the majority of the Democratic Party's elected politicians were endorsing Mamdani. There is a what's the opposite of rose-colored glasses by which we are all being told we should be examining the Democratic Party, where nothing they do is ever good enough and nothing the Republicans do is ever bad enough. Does that make sense?
I mean, I think the Republican Party is just a bunch of fascists.
I completely agree with you, but that's the thing, is like there's so many people in this country who will tell you the Democrats suck at messaging, the Democrats are feckless and ineffective. The Democrats have never done anything for the union. The Democrats have never done anything to make healthcare cheaper. And I'm like, but none of that's true.
Sure. But the DNC also ousted the kid who survived the high school shooting, right? He went in, he was aggressive,
David Hogg.
He said, we should primary these ineffective people. And they said, fuck you. That's bad policy.
I am so fucking with you. That's one of those things where I'm like, I'm not going to couch that, criticism in any kind of we're judging the Democratic Party too harshly. Like the way that they value seniority, the way that they're like, it's this person's turn, even if it's the wrong person, I think is like fucking disgusting. And exercise that shit, man. Get rid of it. I'm talking about
it's losing young people.
100%. I'm talking about the general zeitgeist. Like I see this massive monster that needs to get slain. This standard that we judge the Democratic Party by, and we cannot think of enough excuses for the Republican Party. By contrast,
sure,
The
Mamdanis of the world gave me the excitement that Obama gave people in 2008.
100%.
And I want the party to lean that way, but it seems that they're resistant to it, unfortunately.
But again, you're talking about a specific number of Democrats as opposed to the Democratic Party in general. Like, all the politicians that you love are in the Democratic Party, right?
Yeah.
So why aren't we focused on them?
AOC's a sellout.
Why aren't we? You think AOC's a sellout?
A lot of progressive and leftists think AOC's a sellout. And I'm like, no, she decided to go and work within the system versus outside of it.
100%. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Anyways, I gotta let you go. This is gonna go on for hours.
I'm enjoying this, so thank you.
No, thank you for being here. Thanks for chatting with me, Ned. I appreciate it.
Let's just, let's hope for progress, and everyone in here, whether you like what we're saying or not, vote in your fucking primaries.
Absolutely. Hey, let's not just hope. Let's do the fucking work, Ned.
Absolutely.
All right, take care.
Cheers.
What a sweetheart. Good lord. Yeah, sorry I was ignoring all the comments and questions, everybody, but that I found that to be a very productive conversation, All right, let's see here. Billy says, I really wish this discussion would continue. I really enjoyed listening to the both of you. Thank you, Billy. I appreciate that. We're at an hour and 10 minutes. What's up, Lauren? Great to see you again. So we're going to start wrapping things up, but I do feel bad that I was ignoring you guys in the chat for so long. This rainbow emoji says AOC is a sellout. I don't agree with that. Ask a question, or I'm going to boot you. Democratic Socialist is the only way forward. You know, a lot of people in America would disagree with you, rainbow emoji. Rainbow emoji says Obama and Kamala both spent money towards prisons. I don't know if that's accurate. Rainbow emoji says Democrats do suck. They only do damage control. Again, I would refer you to my whole fucking conversation with Nat Cat that we literally just had. Bona Field says we have no government working for us. They work against us. No. Number two, parties just pretending to be to completely disagree with that. Again, I would reference everything that I've said in my entire fucking life. All right, D. Scott says, I think the common ground is the DNC is more of an issue than Democrats at large. I don't know if I would agree with that. I'm sure that there are issues in leadership, but, you know, again, I think some of that comes with the struggle of working to coalesce a bunch of little groups together into one big group. Greasy says, in your opinion, who are the better Democrat primary elects? I don't know. I'm not really sure. Like, are you talking about the presidential election or what? Dan Blackbird, East Meets West, Triska L. Thank you so much for helping me reach my third finger hearts goal of the day. I'm gonna do one more just as we're wrapping things up. Let's do donuts. All right, we'll do 10 donuts. Okay, let's see here. Francis Underwood says, who would you want for the Democratic nominee in 2028? So I am torn. 99% of the time when I answer that question, I always tell people, no, I'm not going to talk about 28. We got 26 midterms coming up. Let's vote in the midterms, et cetera, et cetera. But I gotta plug somebody because I have really been digging what Chris Murphy has been doing lately. And so I'm not saying that I don't even know if he's running. I just want to tell people that I like the guy and I think he's great. He's my new Elizabeth Warren, you know, so I'm about it. So everybody go check out Chris Murphy. Look at his fucking floor speeches. I think he's dope as hell. There was there was something else I wanted to talk about. Oh, Nat Cat. I don't know if you're still here, Nat Cat, but I just wanted to put one more idea in your noodle before we start wrapping things up, which is that I think that progressives, and I count myself as one of these people, we think that we are more politically populist than we actually are. And so when our preferred candidate doesn't win, we think there was some chicanery or fuckery, you know? And based on some of the polling that I have seen, trying to take the temperature of the American public, it seems like some people would rather have more centrist Democrats. And so when we progressives lose elections, I think that we have to be fucking cooler about it, you know? And that's, you know, what do you call it? Yeah. just a little thing for our noodles to kick around. All right, more break, please. Says, I have one final question. What are your thoughts on if a progressive Democrat comes up on your page and you like most of their videos? Do you follow them even if they're out of your district? I don't know why that came to me. It just did. Yeah, I mean, every little bit helps people in the algorithm. So I would say if your follow can help those people a little bit, then 100% let's do it, you know? Sphinx Egyptian says, I love AOC and Mamdani and Crockett and Sanders, but if I like Gavin Newsom too, is that okay? Yeah, 100%. Like who you like. Crazy says, who are you voting for in the primaries? If there's a more progressive candidate, I'm mostly going to be voting for them. Natcat says, I think there's equal as many disenfranchised left voters than there are those who want a centrist. Maybe, Natcat. But let me just say this. When I moved to California, there was a Senate race between Adam Schiff and Katie Porter. And I'm a Katie Porter stan, so I voted for her, and then she lost. And I was like, all right, I guess more people wanted to vote for Adam Schiff, you know? There were a lot of people who didn't vote. Maybe I could have done more work to try to convince more people to vote for Katie Porter, you know? But yeah, I don't think that Katie Porter being in that race or Adam Schiff being in that race, you know, disenfranchised progressive voters. Like, where were they in the primary, you know? Anyway, sorry, I'm getting off topic here. I'm going all over the place. All right, everybody. Grimicus says, thoughts on Jasmine Crockett and James Talarico? I think they're both great. I think Texas cannot do wrong with either of those Senate candidates. If I had to pick, I might go Talarico a little bit over Crockett, maybe just because it's Texas, and I think maybe he's got a better chance in Texas than Jasmine Crockett. But again, I think whoever wins that primary is awesome, and Texas would be smart to elect either one of them in the general. Alrighty, everybody. Thank you so much, everybody who was here. I really appreciate all the comments and the supports and the gifts. If you want to support the show financially, you can, but you don't have to. I know that we're all struggling financially these days. But you can send gifts on TikTok and Twitch and YouTube. You can become super subscribers and super fans on TikTok and Twitch and YouTube. I have a Patreon that you can join for as little as $1 a month. And if you have Amazon Prime and you want to support this show in a way that is completely free to you, if you subscribe to my channel on Twitch using your Amazon Prime account, it is completely free to you and it helps me out a ton. If there are anything that I was not able to get to on this live stream that you really wanted to ask, or something comes up later, you are allowed to email me. You can DM me, you can hit me up via my website, you can hit me up via my Discord channel. I want to be a resource for you guys to be more informed and more involved in politics. So if I can do that somehow, I want to do that. Hit me up. Don't be shy. Send me a couple of messages, even if I don't respond on multiple platforms. Like, I'm not going to think you're creepy. Sometimes messages get lost in the sauce. So 100% do what you got to do. Christopher Houston says, how much does Soros pay you? Soros doesn't pay me anything, but your mom pays me a lot to fuck her on the weekends. Alrighty. Special thanks to everybody who already supports the show financially. All the people that gave gifts today, all my regulars, Eats Meets Westy, and Dan Blackroyd, my Twitch subs, Triska, Lauren, and Kayslo, my super fans, Sean, Dan, and Hot Sauce, and my patrons, Robert, Shannon, Carmine, and Patrick. Let's see here. Discord is a great place. You can form community with other fans of the show, and also there's great recommendations there for books and podcasts and great organizations for you to donate your time and money to. My stand-up special is dropping on January 31st. I'm doing a special live stream tomorrow at 6 p.m. Pacific time, where you can ask me questions about stand-up and being a comedian, and you can just ask me anything that you like. You know, if you want to know my little life journey on becoming a stand-up, I really hope that you guys watch the special when it comes out on January 31st. Link is in the bio. If we get big numbers on the first day, that could potentially help me out in the algorithm. And lastly, just my heartfelt plea that everybody out there does the work, because it is only us doing the work that is gonna turn the tide, that is gonna make this shit, better than it is, because we don't have to live like this, Oh, okay. Lauren says, Jerry, you owe us 20 minutes of makeup time for knowing us. I'm so sorry, Lauren, but I had a really good chat going. Chat with Natcat was happening. We could have a separate segment on this show, Natcat, called Chatting with Natcat. More break, please. Says, no cap, homie does seriously respond to moms. Sorry, I confused those two messages. DJ More Break, please, says, no cap, homie does seriously respond to your messages. JP says, no cap, homie does seriously respond to moms. Alrighty, let's see here. I think I'm going to start wrapping things up, guys. Lauren, you got me with it, man. You made it happen. Jackson says, what are your views? I'm a progressive Democrat. Just Joy says, if Jasmine doesn't win, does she give up her seat? I think that's the rule. Like, I think that Katie Porter had to give up her seat because she wanted to run for Senate. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that. It might depend on the state. All right, everybody. Thanks again for being here. I do not support Trump, Jay. Save America says, you're probably bad at debate. Well, I know you're bad at spelling because you spelled your wrong. Also, I fucked your mom. Thank you for being here, everybody. Check me out again tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel, and also the special stand-up special live stream at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. No live stream this Friday because I will be traveling, but you get an extra one on Wednesday. Be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. Save America, just a reminder that I fucked your mom, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.